I'm using Magnaflow for the mufflers, same as I use on my 510. Had nothing but good luck with Magnaflow stuff, so I'm using 2.5 inch. That's offset, but straight through beyond that. And then for my resonators, so I can avoid boom and quiet it down a little bit, is by Performance. I won't put links for this stuff, but I'm pretty amazed how cheap. I think these were like 40 bucks a piece or something. Super nice looking. It'll be buried under the car, but got a flange. The other one I've already bolted in. I'll show you that in a moment. These are V-bands. I've used these a lot in turbocharged stuff. I got 4 for like 40 bucks. Cool thing about these V-bands is they actually have this little lip here. And so that fits into this lip so they don't move. A lot of V-bands are, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but they don't have a lip, so they can, when you put them together, they can actually move a little bit. These aren't like that, so I'm going to have the exhaust in 2 sections, and I got 4 of these for that. So I got some new exhaust studs I've already put in for the driver's side that needed them. And getting started. You can see the oil cooler lines on there, and getting started with the flange bolted on there with the new studs. Ground off the mill scale so that I get a good weld on there. But that's where I'm going to start, and then I'm going to try to snake it down under here to get started. I'm glad I did the oil cooler lines first, because they're definitely going to make it a little bit more difficult to snake through than they would have. It would be without that, but nothing I can't get around. On my turbo car, I was a lot worse snaking stuff down. One thing I have for this project that I haven't had before is Bandsaw. This is a cheap Harbor Freight bandsaw, but for what I'm doing, I'm not doing any industrial work. It's pretty nice, so instead of having to use a cutoff wheel, which is what I've always done, this bandsaw makes some pretty nice straight cuts. That makes things easier, stuff like this. It takes a little bit to get set up. Last cuts I made on it weren't exactly perfect, but probably as good as you're going to get with a cutoff wheel to begin with. So we'll make first cut. There you go, pretty damn straight. So you're doing this, you pretty much get a little leeway when the tube is smaller than the flange. So instead of having to come, say, straight out like that, you can actually have a little bit of an angle on it. I kind of think I could get about that much. With the MIG also, instead of the TIG like I did with my motor mounts, tacking's way easier. Probably getting your helmet on there and seeing what you're doing when you're under a car is about the worst thing, but besides that, get a couple tacks on there, tack it another time after you've carefully taken it off, if you can't. Do 3 due to space constrictions, and then weld it up. Okay, so to give a little update, snaked a few pieces, some ugly tacks, but guess what? Those will get taken care of later. So to get down this far, I've used 4 different pieces. Lexus actually right here has a space, but even that space is not big enough for these. It's still the lowest part, because the drive shaft does not move in this application. These will actually fit up. in here. Basically, those two fit right up in there. It's gonna hold those together, and then I'll be able to jack that up and use that as the next place that I'm going to shoot for, basically. So that's tacked on there. And what I'll do now is I'll fully weld this stuff later. I'm gonna use my floor jack and jack these up into position under there just to give me an idea of what I'm shooting for. It's not going to come in contact with the drive shaft since it doesn't move anymore. And coming along here, and now this is where we're transitioning into the resonators. So almost got lucky. This kit comes with 180-degree U-bends. This and this are just, I cut the legs off a little bit, but are just flipped. Wasn't quite lucky enough to get the distance to be perfect, but it's the kind of stuff you run into with this. I'm going to disconnect up there at the manifold and see if I can get this out of the car and back up in. If I can't, I'm gonna have to put V-bands somewhere. Okay, so I'm pretty damn happy with that. I wouldn't tighten the clamp like that, obviously, but that part of the exhaust starts to rise a little bit, making a little room for that clamp. My exhaust is still going to be the lowest thing, but and then that clamp took up that gap, and so now I have these two sitting in there where they should be, and that gave me just enough wiggle room to, I gotta tack this side of it, but I think that's going to work out nice and let me easily get the exhaust out if I need to, because each one of those pipes is just going to be a single pipe, unless I H-pipe up there, but I don't think I have room to do that. So the handy thing about this bandsaw is not only can you use it where you kind of drop the blade in, but you can keep it upright, and with these two bolts you get this tray, and then you can just cut pipe like this. If you go with 4.5 degrees or 9 degrees, your pipe will remain the same diameter so that you can actually weld it together. If you cut steeper angles, then the pipe doesn't match up. I used it a few times when I was dealing with the driver's side exhaust coming off the manifold. I think this is going to be quite a bit simpler. I used one of the 45s. I need a test fit in there. It was a little short getting down underneath the car, but I had an extra piece. I'm not going to have problems with pipe that I can tell as far as the amount with that kit I got. Okay, so getting to the point on the dual exhaust where about middle point of the car, but I've got everything. I'll show you in a second, but getting to the point I'm worrying about exhaust hangers. So I kept the Lexus exhaust, at least part of it, and it from the factory, the first hanger it has, like this is basically the middle-ish of the car. First hangers are here. I'm going to use the stock locations of hangers to the best of my ability, and the other hanger is for the muffler back there. Got this thing all tacked together. These clamps again, I'll arrange them so that stuff's not hanging down obviously when I've finally installed, but I'm right about there. So the first hanger's right here, come back, and they're right there. So I got a little ways to go before I get there. Gonna be a straight pipe back to that, with a little bend in it, and get around the mufflers and go from there. So, been making some decent progress. Haven't filmed a ton, but I have another side to do, so. Back in there, and then we've made our way up, under, and then up, and out. Kind of a cool thing, the stock tips. The way they mount in there, you could take them off the stock mufflers. I will trim this off, but I modified the mount. Spaced in there nice. These are the stock rubber type hangers. I did take out, there's a huge bracket in there that Lexus uses for some unknown reason. It's unneeded, so that goes all the way up to the front. Just end up starting at one end. Sometimes it's hard to imagine actually coming out of the right place, especially when you're doing all butt connections. So we go to the big box. Again, getting lower on pipes, but I know I need at least 190. So that lines up there. This lines up there. Now, we have that back section basically completed with those three. This is the piece that's going to be coming out of the resonators. So, resonator and then into the 45. So I already tacked that one. So this is the mount that I took off of the Lexus assembly. We're going to clean this part up. And that part, just depending, forget which side I ended up welding it on, might be both in the end. And then that'll be the first set of hangers back, the other one's at the muffler. This will fit right in here. This pipe is where it should be. I need to tack it right there, but I'll move around to the back. Symmetrical, it's level. It's really supposed to be about level. These are not ever going to be swapped, so I don't really have to worry about it being perfect. I'm just trying to, I know this side worked. They're trying to get it on this side. So I have this band clamp. After I tack that down there, I'm going to put this band clamp on here and then fit this piece, and that'll be the next step. So I don't know. I don't want to use the word messed up, but I guess messed up. I'm not changing it. I put the V-band here on this side and up there on that side. As far as getting things out of here, it doesn't matter. I have to loosen a clamp no matter what. No flow difference, no any difference, except for it's not perfectly symmetrical. And this is not going to be a perfectly symmetrical kind of build. So, with everything tacked back to here, I now have the muffler. I'll show you in a second place. There's a jack under it. I have it centered in that hole with some foam, which is actually doing a good job. Can't really move around in there. One piece left, tying that to that. I'm still messing around with the angle a little bit, but that's totally fine. I mean, I'm just going with my hand, but this is a little off, so I'm going to mess around with some angles a little bit more. I've been struggling a bit out here to make this other side fit. I ended up having to add a little piece right there, It's an extension, but good news is got that thing centered in there. So this will be trimmed later, but you can see right in there that fits. And I will tack it in a couple places, trim off what I need after I get all this rest of the stuff done. First, and we'll check and see that this thing's centered. Could probably drop down a teeny bit, move over a little bit. So once I get that done, then I'm going to tack that in place. And there it is, sitting in the middle. Trim all this stuff later. I have tacked dual exhausts together. One thing I need to figure out is whether I'm going to do an H pipe or if I can do an H pipe. Okay, it looks like I might have an easier solution and one that doesn't cause me nearly as many problems. Well, other than the fact that I don't think I can drill holes there, but could put one right there. Not coming apart. So, pretty decent. MIG's not going to be TIG, especially on thin stuff, but I'm pretty damn satisfied with that. This becomes easier. Again, thick to thin. I'll turn the wire speed up a little bit. And so the exhaust journey continues. I got everything pretty much welded up except for one section. So this has 6 sections. It has these 2 down pipes. Welded that bung in there. And then I have a mid. I'll show more of this later, but mid section over there, and then 2 back sections. All of them are welded except for the passenger side rear. Would have done that last night, except for I forgot to weld or tack the pipe into the muffler, and so I couldn't be sure exactly how that was without putting everything back together. So I got these painted last night. I just used VHT. I'm using mild steel unless I happen to have Resonators or something that's stainless. It's all mild. So I just want something that'll keep the rust off. So I got that. One can did this many pipes, which is not even a third of my exhaust pipe-wise. So a little disappointed in that, but it is what it is. So I'm planning on putting these 2 pipes on, and then we will put the other things on, other sections on, and I can tack that last again right rear section, and then weld that up and paint it, and we'll be ready to go. So we're making progress on the exhaust. It's pretty close to being finished. I was going to finish it up today, but I ran out of welding gas. But that is the driver's side rear section. I'm going to paint this exhaust with this VHT flame-proof stuff. Frankly, I could probably just use regular spray paint for most everything except for the down pipe stuff that comes off the manifold. But I have it, so I'm going to use it. Takes a little while to dry, so I'm going to do this section because I can. But the rest of it's going to be essentially a repeat of this. So you're supposed to do a couple light coats and then a heavier one. So the directions say 2 light coats and 1 heavy coat. That's what I did on the pipes from the manifold to get underneath the car. Turned out good. So we will repeat this about, let's see, 1, 2, guess only 2 more sections, and then we will be finished.